I'm Doug Boynton, and you're listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition, highlighting the week's news and stories happening across the area. Here are the news stories as we jump into August. Virginia developers are making moves this year. They want to build more apartments and condominiums and fewer single-family homes. And one Virginia Beach business owner is even eyeing a new arena. WHRO spoke with Suffolk's city manager Al Moor in his last week on the job. He retired from local government this week. And Newport News is investing $4 million to transform its airport into, well, something new. We'll get into these stories and more, but first, this news update from NPR. It's WHRO's Weekly Edition. Virginia developers are planning to build more apartments and condos and fewer single-family homes compared to last year. WHRO's Ryan Murphy talks about how that will affect the housing market.
Builders sought nearly 15% fewer single-family permits in the second quarter of this year compared to last year, according to a new report from the Home Builders Association of Virginia. In the same period, they asked for 24% more permits to build multifamily developments. Craig Tolson runs the association. He says builders can't keep pace with the overwhelming demand for housing, especially for more affordable units.
If you're looking for a home, or you have family, or you have colleagues that are going to need to buy a home, then this would be troubling news because the single family prices that continue to rise are just not attainable for most Virginians right now.
Virginia's median single family home sold for just over $446,000 in June, up $15,000 from last year. Ryan Murphy, WHRO News.
As those apartments and condos go up, another building is being, conceptualized in Virginia Beach. Business owner Coleman Ferguson has no experience with major developments or connections to those who do, but he says he's the one who can bring an arena to Virginia Beach. WHRO's Ryan Murphy is back with more about that man behind the plan.
Ferguson launched a site this month soliciting crowdfunding to generate interest to get real financial backing for a 20,000-seat arena. The Virginia Beach native currently owns 2 businesses. He's got a GED and no background in large-scale development. He doesn't have a location or any major partners lined up. But Ferguson argues his passion for the project makes him the right man for the job.
While everybody's sleeping, I'm reading more articles. I'm reading how arenas generate revenue. I sleep this project. I wake up and that's all I do is I study and do everything that I can to learn more about this project and how I can make it happen.
Ferguson says what he's envisioning would cost about $700 million to build. Ryan Murphy, WHRO News.
Bringing Amtrak service back to Suffolk might bring in more dollars for businesses and the city and could reduce road congestion. WHRO's Nick McNamara dives into the train business. All aboard.
Passenger rail stations can bring more travel spending to a community, but the biggest direct economic benefit is the temporary bump from constructing the new stop, said economist Terry Rephan of the University of Virginia's Weldon Cooper Center.
You're not going to see a huge company move into the area because all of a sudden there's this additional train access.
A new station, though, could mean fewer cars on the road, less traffic, decreased pollution, and a quieter city, as well as a convenient way to the capital. Suffolk approved $485,000 this year for studies to show Amtrak the demand for a station and assess the best places to build one. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
The Chesapeake Bay program says it will meet some terms of a federal cleanup agreement signed more than a decade ago. WHRO's Catherine Hafner reports the program will specifically meet goals on oyster reefs.
Back in 2014, several states, including Virginia, signed the Chesapeake Bay Watershed Agreement. It outlined 31 outcomes to voluntarily achieve by this year, such as boosting wetlands and fish habitats. The Bay program announced this week it's on track to hit the goal for restoring native oyster reefs. Officials have planted reefs in 10 Chesapeake Bay tributaries, such as the Lynnhaven and York rivers. In total, the projects add about 1,300 football fields of oyster habitat around the bay. Many other targets of the agreement will not be met by this year's deadline, including cutting pollution. Officials are now working to update the document, placing greater emphasis on engaging the public and adapting to climate change. Catherine Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
Trends come and go, and one that's taken the world by storm has made its way to Virginia. Labubus are designed loosely after mythical Nordic monsters the Chinese-born creator embraced after moving to the Netherlands. But the unique sales method used to distribute Labubus may be playing a part in their success. Here's more from WVTF's Brad Kuttner.
You've probably seen them in public, or you've seen the memes online, or maybe you've heard their theme song coming from your kid's phone. Labubus are fuzzy, smiley, kinda scary-looking monsters that you can hang from your bag or keys. Created by European artist Casing Lung, they've become the hot new item this summer, and that demand is stretched into Richmond. The slow release of collections, sold exclusively through a unique online method, has made the dolls rare and led to local resale efforts that mimic the online store's mysteries. Paxton Chapman works at Scoreboard, a collectible shop in downtown Richmond. He said he got his first batch of Labubus about 6 months ago. A longtime participant in fad resale items like sneakers and trading cards, he said the dolls are nicer than one might think.
They feel great. The texture of the fur is very nice. The vinyl is very well made, so they're a very cute little thing.
Chapman has used both the official site, Pop Mart, and resellers to buy them. But in order to buy them from the official site, you have to play a kind of game, opening boxes, competing with others to open them first. Adam Sexton got his first Labubus back in the spring, and the rush he got from that game inspired him to come back for more.
Knowing that I could get them, I don't know, it just kind of was the thrill of getting them and then being able to resell them. So I ended up, I think, buying almost 32 or something.
Asked if there was a gambling element to the process, he admitted,
I do love casinos.
But even resellers are taking part in the game-like sale method. Laura Pastor has 3 Labubus. She got them from resellers. Ironically, she tried to buy a specific one at first, but got a different, rarer one. And the second time, she bought 2 so-called blind boxes from a reseller.
And it was like my heart was racing because there was one I really didn't want. And I was like, if I get this one, I'm going to throw a fit.
You can hear the excitement in her voice in this unboxing video she shared.
This is fun. Okay. I got a sesame bean. She's so cute.
But does the Labubu fad mean something larger? I heard plenty of theories, including a recession indicator as older dolls go for a higher price online. Here's Sexton's take.
They're spending money on something they can, like, hoard.
Holding the dollar against a Labubu?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know, maybe. The secrets go for, like, $400, $200 to $400.
For Pastor, it's been a source of jokes from her close circle of friends, but sharing in a viral trend builds connections too, especially after she discovered a friend had printed Labubu t-shirts for a local pop-up.
But she and I were just fangirling about Labubus and how much we love them and how both of our boyfriends are not that into them or whatever. And we were talking about how we both got into it. And it was so much fun. And I was like, oh my God, Labubu creates community.
Perhaps influenced by his own role in reselling, Chapman argued it was a chance to take control in these uncertain times.
Spending money on something quintessentially completely useless makes you feel like the world isn't so f***ed up, that the economy is in a very bad place because look, I just spent $70 on this little toy.
Lots of people messaged me when I put a call out for local Labubu stories, and notably a number of folks said they've been scammed. But a message from the Office of the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia said no such scams have been reported yet. In Richmond, I'm Brad Kuttner.
Still ahead on Weekly Edition, Navy and Marine officials were in Norfolk this week to discuss reducing ship maintenance time. We'll learn how they plan to do that. But first, former North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper says he's running for the U.S. Senate in 2026. WHRO's Connor Worley details the shape of that race.
Cooper announced his campaign in an email and social media post, saying Washington is broken and needs new leadership. He blasted D.C. politicians for running up the debt, threatening Medicare, and favoring the wealthy over working families. Cooper, a Democrat, says retaking the Senate is critical and calls his race the most competitive in the country. Cooper first won the governor's office in 2016 and was re-elected in 2020. The seat is open after Republican Tom Tillis ran afoul of President Trump and chose not to run again. Republicans now hold a 3-seat Senate margin. Cooper's likely opponent is RNC Chair Michael Whatley. Connor Worley, WHRO News.
Campaign finance disclosures show this year's race for governor is not attracting the kind of money that other recent elections have. WVTF's Michael Pope crunches the numbers.
Democrat Abigail Spanberger is on track to raise as much money, if not more, than former Governor Terry McAuliffe raised in the last election cycle. But Republican Winsome Earl Sears has raised significantly less money than current Governor Glenn Youngkin did back in 2021. That's according to data compiled by the Virginia Public Access Project. J. Miles Coleman at the University of Virginia says the lieutenant governor also struggled with fundraising in her last campaign.
Kala Ayala was outraising her basically 2-1 at this point too, but she eventually went on to win, obviously. But if you're running for governor compared to LG, you really have to step up your game, and I don't think I've seen much of that from Sears this year.
The race for Attorney General is the polar opposite. Both candidates are raising and spending historic amounts of money, especially Republican incumbent Jason Miyares, who raised the most amount of money of any statewide candidate in the latest campaign finance disclosure. I'm Michael Pope.
Norfolk Botanical Garden workers voted to unionize last week. WHRO's Nick McNamara reports on the latest steps in what will likely be a long process.
Nearly 2/3 of garden employees voted to form the union. Bridget Fitzgerald, the Norfolk Workers Union organizer, says they're getting a survey ready to home in on what they want to see in a contract with management. She says the union needs to be a voice for all garden employees, including those who opposed forming one.
If you can't include everyone's voice, then you're still excluding those same 23 people who are essentially a third of the bargaining unit. And you don't want to do that. You want everybody to come together in unity.
The National Labor Relations Board will certify the vote later this month. Fitzgerald anticipates negotiations with management could take as long as a year. Management expressed an unwavering commitment to garden workers in an emailed statement, saying they're focused on building a strong, successful future together. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
The Virginia Beach Aquarium opened a new wildflower garden to boost the pollinator population. WHRO's Catherine Hafner went to check it out.
Just a few months ago, this spot along the aquarium's nature trail was a typical grassy lawn. After workers spread tens of thousands of seeds, it's now in full bloom, with native species like milkweed, buttonbush, and sunflowers. Supervisor Brian Russa says the aquarium wants to create a habitat for bees, butterflies, and other insects. These pollinators are in steep decline, but crucial for the environment.
While they're feeding or collecting the pollen, nectar, things like that, the insects will also fertilize the seeds so that the seeds are viable and ready to go for next year.
He hopes visitors are inspired to create their own version at home. All you need is some sun and seeds.
Even a small patch is not only beautiful, you're helping. And if everyone did just a little patch, that is a lot of pollinators we can support.
Plus, that means less grass you have to mow, he says. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
Suffolk's city manager Al Moor retired this week. WHRO's Nick McNamara spoke with him about his more than 40 years working in local government.
What's it been like for you to serve the city of Suffolk all these years?
A blessing, I guess. I've been blessed with finding the opportunities to grow in my professional career. It went by fast, or it seems to have gone by fast. But I think the service that we do, there's no better service unless you're a nurse. But, I mean, it's the relationships you build along the way and the things you accomplish. The problem is we don't take those moments enough to sit back and see what we really have achieved, and because we're always pushing forward. But to me, it's been a great opportunity. I've been great people around me, great mentors, great staff, great peers, the support of city council, and the support of the citizens. We have a great community here, and as we like to say, it's a great time to be in Suffolk.
Suffolk is growing fast, which means good revenue growth for a city, but that also comes with infrastructure infrastructure challenges. How would you rate your ability to strike a balance between growth and keeping up with growth?
As you talk about the growth of the city, when I arrived here, there was 58,000 citizens. Today, there's around 105,000 approximately. So we have seen the growth over the years, over that 30-year span. And a couple times it was rapid. Other times when the housing market crashed, it was a little bit slower. But we've been fortunate to be able to leverage funding to do certain improvements, such as Route 58 improvements, which are coming to an end. The Shoulders Hill work that's just starting up there, or has been underway for a bit, actually. The flyover on Wilroy Road, that's nearing completion. So everywhere you ride in Suffolk right now, you'll find a construction barrel. I think what's driven and help us balance that is our land use plan, which we're under the 2045 plan right now, the comprehensive land use plan. And that has driven our growth into two areas, which now have merged into one urban-suburban development area under the new plan. So I think planning is the one thing that helps us balance it, both from a land use plan, a utility plan, a transportation perspective, and also our capital improvement plan. I mean, all of that comes together to help us reach that vision of our city.
Is there a project or an initiative that you wish you could have gotten started, that you wish you could have seen through, but you weren't able to accomplish?
There is one that really is dear to my heart, and that's an Amtrak station in the core city. You know, we as a region, we talk about, and when I've been to some of the meetings on the rail system in Virginia, Fast Rail initiatives. If you're west of the Elizabeth River and you want to go to Northern Virginia, say you're in Suffolk, it takes you 40 minutes to go down to Harbor Park to catch the train. Then you travel another by train, if it leaves as soon as you get there, 20 minutes, a half hour, and you're coming right back through downtown Suffolk. If you had those time together, you'd already be sitting in Richmond. So I think an Amtrak station out here in the western part of the Hampton Roads region would be a great benefit, not only to Suffolk residents, but those residents in northern North Carolina, or even west of us to Isle of Wight, even in Chesapeake, if you're on the western side of the Elizabeth River. Our rail systems are missing some ridership, which would really just benefit us all as we talk about transportation links.
That was Suffolk's city manager, Al Moor, who began his retirement on Friday.
This is WHRO's Weekly Edition. Remember, for any stories you've missed, you can visit us on the WHRO smartphone app or all social media platforms.
Top brass from the Navy and Marine Corps were in Norfolk this week to discuss maintenance backlogs and the new spending bills. WHRO military reporter Steve Walsh says it's part of an effort to reduce the sometimes years-long maintenance periods.
Contractors were told about the need to rebuild the shipbuilding industry at the Navy and Marine Procurement Conference. Brigadier General Christopher Haar says the ships used to carry Marines spend on average 750 days in maintenance.
We face several gaps where the geographic combatant commanders are not allowed to have Marine expeditionary units because the amphib ships are not there. That decreases the ability for the Marine Corps to have that forward naval presence.
The U.S. is in the process of spending billions of dollars to revitalize the shipbuilding industry, both commercially and for the Navy. Defense officials say a large portion of those funds are headed to Hampton Roads to speed up the time to both build and repair ships. Steve Walsh, WHRO News.
A multi-state power grid operator, which includes Virginia, is seeing record-high electricity prices. WHRO's Catherine Hafner reported the story.
The organization, called PJM, predicts regional energy supply and demand and coordinates how electricity flows through transmission lines. In other words,
they consider themselves like air traffic control for electricity.
That's Claire Langry with the nonprofit Natural Resources Defense Council. PJM just held its annual energy capacity auction. Langry says power operators like Dominion Energy bid to be able to supply and draw from the grid in case of an emergency.
The concept of the capacity auction is paying plants for the promise of delivering during an extreme event.
Energy prices soared at this week's auction, up tenfold from just a few years ago. Part of the problem is PJM's massive backlog in getting new power plants online. Here in Virginia, Dominion customers are largely shielded from the increases because the utility relies less on the regional market. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
Learn more about PJM at WHRO.org. Newport News is investing $4 million to transform Newport News-Williamsburg Airport. WHRO's Nick McNamara reports the city wants it to be an air commerce park.
Mayor Phil Jones said in a written statement that the move will position Newport News as a hub for innovation, logistics, and advanced air mobility. The money will support operations and capital projects aligning with the transformation. Also called Patrick Henry Field, the airport has regularly operated at a loss in recent years, and commercial air customers coming to Newport News steadily decreased over the past decade. The change in focus was recommended by a 2024 regional air study. It stated repurposing the airport to focus on supporting cutting-edge aeronautics research and development could transform it into a vital economic engine for the region. Airport officials say they're eyeing partners in sectors such as air manufacturing, logistics, and electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. Nick McNamara, WHRO News.
A graduate of Norview High School says she wants to help boost green space in marginalized communities. WHRO's Catherine Hafner reported that story.
Zuri Askew grew up in Norfolk's Coronado neighborhood and says one community hub is the Coronado School. It was built for Black students in the 1960s and later served pregnant teenagers. It's been closed for nearly 2 decades.
In the space we're standing right now, obviously there isn't much here. As you can see down there is a basketball court.
Askew sees this empty space as an opportunity. She studies landscape architecture at North Carolina A&T State University and wants to help revitalize underserved neighborhoods. Here at the Coronado School, she's sketched out ideas like a community garden and playground.
When you're bringing these green spaces into these communities, you're planting trees, you're cleaning the air, and you're just creating a space for children, for adults, for everyone to be able to get outside and enjoy the outdoors.
Askew recently won a scholarship from a North Carolina law firm to help pursue her passion. Catherine Hafner, WHRO News.
A star athlete from rural Virginia is now enshrined with a plaque at Cooperstown. And by next year, Baseball Hall of Fame relief pitcher Billy Wagner will also have a permanent marker in his hometown. WVTF's Jeff Bossert spoke with a person leading that effort.
A native of Tazewell, where he pitched in high school, Wagner learned in January that he'd been elected to this year's Hall of Fame class. A local hero, there are signs on each end of town celebrating his big league career, but a committee formed a couple months later was tasked with doing something more.
And that it was such a larger-than-life thing that he had done, and we felt that something larger than life ought to be due to recognize it.
Local attorney Brad Pyatt is leading that effort. He ultimately decided a statue of Wagner delivering one of his signature fastballs would be the best way to honor him. And they'll be placing it in Tazewell's mini park on Main Street. A sculptor is coming up with the design, and Pyatt's committee is working to raise the roughly $250,000 necessary for the statue and surrounding plaza. Wagner also pitched for Ferrum College, and he's the first player from a Division III school elected to MLB's Hall of Fame. He's also the first left-handed relief pitcher to make it in the Hall, racking up 422 saves in a 16-year career. The committee in Tazewell, tasked with creating the future Billy Wagner Park, hopes to unveil his statue by the fall of 2026. I'm Jeff Bossert.
You've been listening to WHRO's Weekly Edition. We had help today from WHRO's Catherine Hafner, Nick McNamara, Ryan Murphy, and Steve Walsh, and WVTF's Brad Kuttner, Michael Pope, and Jeff Bossert. Thanks as always to Connor Worley, who produced today's show. A reminder, you can always catch full episodes on the Weekly Edition podcast feed. You can get your news updates at WHRO.org, the WHRO smartphone app, and the WHRO Reports podcast feed. For all of us at WHRO and WHRV, I'm Doug Boynton. Stay safe. Be well.